really motivating me and pushing me forward.
And you know what? Good coaches do that, and a lot of people don't understand. You know, a lot of people don't understand that now, and I think they're filtering that out of young men. That you know, because at some point it's either I'm gonna push you so far that you're gonna bend, or you're gonna stand up and fight back. And good coaches know exactly what to do with each individual player. So again, this shows how great the late great Bob Hamrick was. Please continue.
Oh, yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And that's one of the things that's kind of been lost, you know, because you mentioned my playing career. I also coached for 8 years before getting into the other stuff that I'm doing now. But I coached at the high school level for a year, 5 years at the JUCO level where I was also the head coach and the AD, and then 2 years at the Division I level. And then I decided to resign and get into what I'm doing now. But that was always one of those things that I took with me from Bob Hamrick, is really pushing your guys and figuring out which buttons that you had to push. Because there's some guys that you can talk to, there's some guys you got to yell at, there's some guys you got to run. You know, and at the time when I was playing, there were some guys that had to get the paddle. But, you know, you can't paddle nobody today.
Right.
Paddle somebody today, you're going to jail. You know,
straight to jail. Do not pass go.
Oh yeah. But you know, like you said though, those are a lot of the things that are missing in today's coaching, and that's one of the things that's needed, because you know we're boys when we come into high school. You know, you're a young man. You're a young man when you get to college, but at the end of the day, they're trying to make you a man. They're trying to make you, you know, and so in order to do that, you got to know where to push some buttons. And that's coaching. And, you know, Bob Hamrick, like you said, was an ace at it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've heard legendary stories. And the fact that they partnered you with a senior, there's nothing better than that. Because, for one, you think you with somebody, you on that basketball, you on the basketball team, and this is a citywide famous basketball team, and you were one of the stars. And his best friend is the star, which is Nick Anderson. Talk to me about this. Okay, if I'm not misremembering, is that the year of the tragedy or the year after the tragedy?
The year after the tragedy.
Okay.
You know, when Ben got killed his senior year, I was in 8th grade. And, you know, of course, Robeson and Simeon was in that Red South. So my brother had actually played against Simeon when they were playing, and that was, you know, and that was his whole thing. He was like, "Deon, this dude is the best dude I've ever seen." You know, and you know, like I know what they called him in the paper, Magic Johnson with a jump shot.
Yeah.
And you know you had to be cold when you pass away, and Magic called your mother.
Right. Hey man, hey. That was mind-blowing. And for those, again, let me do a little history. For those who don't know what me and Deon are talking about, it was this young man by the name of Ben Wilson. He's a Chicago basketball legend. He was the number one player in the nation. He was, in essence, LeBron James 33 years ago. And it was a situation to where it was a misunderstanding. Things went bad. A young man pulled out a gun, murdered Ben, and it grabbed the city by the throat. It galvanized the city for a very long time because I say this on a regular basis. People assume that Chicago all of a sudden got bad. When we were in high school, Chicago was a war zone. We were gang-ridden. It was the drug situation was just starting to develop. So the stuff on the news, people like myself and Deon, we watched this up close. We lived through it. And as he stated, he was going from one neighborhood to the next going to school, which in Chicago, by and large, was a no-no. And now he's at a school who's just faced a tragedy, and now he's a freshman trying to go into this. And luckily, two of the guys who were stalwarts on that team grabbed Deon and put him under his wing. How did that help you in the game? So now Coach Hamrick has motivated you. You're dealing with Nick Anderson and Irvin Small. Take it from there, please.
Well, you know what that does for you. One, and this is carried over into my professional career as well. And when you have a mentor, and you know, we can talk about this because it's the same thing in life. When you have a mentor, it helps you and teaches you how to do things the right way. And that's what, you know, Irvin Small did for me. Again, like I mentioned earlier, when we came in there as freshmen, they immediately was like, nope, this is how we do things. You know, you don't do this. You don't mess around in class. And I'm not saying we don't have fun and we didn't, you know, get rambunctious because we were kids. But at the same time, we weren't doing things that were so out of pocket that you would get yourself in trouble with, you know, too bad of trouble with your teachers or with the law or anything like that. But, you know, we were kids. And that's one of those things that, you know, I was able to pick up from Irvin, pick up from Nick, pick up from Deon Butler, you know, is how to carry yourself and how to do things the right way. From a basketball standpoint, you learn what's important. I mean, you learn the basics from the very beginning. You know, you have people, and they were telling me this, God is my witness, before Tim Duncan. They were calling me Mr. Fundamental.
Wow.
So, because that's what I learned. You got to think about it. I didn't play basketball coming up, so I didn't have an opportunity to form any bad habits. You know, I didn't have an opportunity to learn all of the stuff that you would pick up if you just playing freelance on the outside, you know, on the court. Everything I learned was like step one, like a kid walking. It was fundamentals. Wow. And so that was really the biggest thing that I got from Irvin in the beginning.
That's amazing because, like you said, you know, you being 6'3", you would assume, especially in Chicago, me and Corliss's coach, Henry Jones, were talking. Shout out to Henry, man. He excellent guy, man. One of the best shows.
Yes, he is.
Harvey Jones. And we were talking about learning the game from the ground up. And like you said, you had a chance. You didn't get a chance to get corrupted. Therefore, you were learning from an apex coach and some of the best players in the United States of America. Like me and Harvey was talking this weekend. Chicago is the mecca of basketball. No disrespect to New York and L.A. and other places, but when you look at basketball players throughout the world, I don't care, on every stage, we are shining. So I'm working on claiming that mecca for Chicago.
Well, I agree with you, brother. And you know, I've played all over the world, so I agree.
Speak on it, brother. Talk to me. Talk to me about
from coaching to recruiting. When I was coaching, and when I tell people, I break down the map, and this is why I think Chicago is the it. When I went to New York, and I recruited New York, I recruited Jersey, I recruited Philly, I recruited Florida, I recruited California, I recruited Texas, Oklahoma, Indiana, and Memphis. All right, so I'm all over the map, right? And I would tell people, when I recruit and I'm putting my team together, because your team is like a jigsaw puzzle. So depending on what I need at that time, this is what I went and got. If I needed a breakdown guard, you know, real dude, one-on-one, I went to New York. I mean, of course, I looked here, but I went to the East Coast because that's what they do well. I needed an athlete, I went south. I needed a shooter or slasher, I went west. I needed a complete basketball player with heart and toughness to go along with it, I came home. So let me just say, most of my players were from here. And that's not to mention the guys that I brought over from Europe that had the skill level and those things are big. I had a 7-1 kid that I played him at the 3 most of the time.
Wow.
From Serbia. Dusan Sparavalo. Shot it like Bird. If he was tougher, bro, he'd have been the high major Division I basketball player. But had all of the skill level to go with him. I played him all over the court. So, again, been all over this world and played all over this world, recruited all over this world. I agree with you 100%. You looking for a pure all-around basketball player, especially when I was coming up. You came here.
Yeah, when we came up, basketball was king. And it looks like we're gonna have to reclaim the throne, because I'm not sure if you're aware of that. The last 2 years are the first time, and I can't remember 2 straight years we don't have a McDonold All-American. Me and Coach Harvey Jones, and me and Coach Thorpe at out west. We're gonna work on something. And
I agree with you. At North Lawndale, as Thorpe said, Lawndale.
North Lawndale.
But you know what my thing is, and the reason I think this is the reason why. It goes back to what we were just talking about with me. We don't have mentors anymore, so we don't have our seniors grabbing our freshmen and teaching them what and how to do things. We don't teach the basics the way we should teach the basics. High school coaches, unfortunately, are not the top dogs and the most important anymore. It's their AAU teams. The parents have lost control, so they're not teaching these things. So when you're playing, 100, 150, 200 basketball games, when do you have time to work on your craft? So now the basics go out the window. Everything you does is kind of one-on-one thing. And it hurts the game. It's hurt these players today. And the ones that do are the ones that are special. Those are the ones that stand out, and everybody see them, And this year's draft, you got the Marvin Bagleys, the Deon, the DeAndre Aytons, the Jaren Jackson, which most of these guys' fathers played ball. So they've kind of taken control and put them into those same things that they were doing. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of people, a lot of parents that hooped and that did that. So the AAU coaches are taking over. Like I know, which I'm sure we'll touch base on later, these guys are worried about trying to get themselves paid. And that creates an issue.
And you know what? It's people like Coach Thorpe and Coach Jones. We do need to. And my mission, part of my mission, is to bring people like yourself, Coach Jones, Coach Thorpe. I'm having a conversation with Coach Irvin at Morgan Park, and what I want to do is, because this is my thought process, and please let me know what you think about this. I think part of the reason AAU isn't as successful as it should be is it removes losing from your DNA. The reason we all got better, with me with football and you with basketball, is because we walked on the court a couple times in our lives, and we knew we had the best team on the field, on the court, or on the diamond, and we got beat because another team knew exactly what to do. With the one and done situation, you don't get a chance to be the Fab Five, knowing you got Chris Webber and Jawan and Jalen and King and Jimmy King and Ray Jackson, knowing you have more talent than anybody in the nation, but knowing we're the Fab Five and we've never won a Big Ten championship. We're the Fab Five. We've never been the number one seed in the tournament. That fuels you, and I think that's what's wrong, because you go from being like you were 6'9", 6'10" in high school, the biggest dude, one of the biggest dudes in the state of Illinois, with some of the best ball players, and you go to Illinois. But when you run into guys who are equally your size, it's easier to deal with them. But when you go dealing with men, that's your first humbling, and it'll be excused, or you'll just be dismissed and done away with. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can say I agree with on a lot of the points you just made. One of the things for me, and I can speak for myself personally, and I think I can speak for anybody that reached an upper echelon in their sport, is you hate losing. You hate losing. I mean, you hate losing more than you like winning. You hate it. I remember there were times when I started playing outside, when we would play open gyms, like I know you might not get it. You lose, you might not get back on the court.
Yes.
So what did that do? That fueled a fire in you not to lose. When I started playing basketball, my older brother used to kick my ass on a daily. So I hated losing to my older brother. When we were in practice, Hambrick would put us 5 JV players against the 5 seniors, and they beat us like we stole something. So you hate losing.